So, BIP of Bizarre Interest Productions, and if you're seeing this video, that means either I'm planning on doing shorter videos alongside my 10 or more longer videos, or I'm trying to improve my time management and testing my abilities to accomplish things more consistently and faster. But, yeah, sometimes I get tired or drained, or I have discussions that aren't necessarily short enough to make it into a short, but not long enough that it could be a full video, but let's talk about it. Yeah, this is a small conversation where a few people have gotten angry, though I do know there's enough needless babies in every fandom that complains about minor things, so to prevent a vocal minority from expanding their reach and getting too mad, let's talk about Yoko Kubi again. In the last video I talked about with regards to her upcoming roles, we found out from episode 38, nope, not 38, 38, 39? Yeah, that Yoko Kubi is voiced by a man in Japan. Naturally, the responses was a little bit surprising, but honestly, the voice, they kind of nailed it for the most part. But yeah, a few people were angry about that, so let's just talk about that for a little bit. Specifically, the actor is Toshiuki Toyonaga. Toyonaga is a Japanese actor and singer who started working on stage. Like I said before in that video prior, I wasn't familiar with his work before, but for some of you guys that are less casual than even me when it comes to Beyblade, turns out he was also a former Beyblade alumni in voice acting for Beyblade. Specifically, he was the voice actor for Pluto in Metal Fight Beyblade 4D, also known when it was localized as Beyblade Metal Fury. While we didn't know too much about Pluto at the time, we came to learn that he was trying to revive the great evil that is the Black Sun, aka Nemesis, using the powers of the Star Fragment, and recruited Johannes and the Nemesis Bladers to get as many as the legendary Bladers as they could to side against them in order to do so, which led him to brainwash Dynamis, and using his powers alongside those of Chris and Aguma in the temple by having them fight the other legendary Bladers and their allies to have enough power to awaken Nemesis, and following the prophecy of King Hades in the past, who we're led to believe, or at least hypothesize, that was his descendant or someone that he followed. And while it's not everyone, a few people are weirded out by this because it's too jarring knowing the voice actor of older women. Ages are hard to figure out sometimes in the voice of a younger man. But what if I told you in the animation community this is something that happens fairly enough? We're going to talk about cartoons first, since I'm slightly more familiar with this happening over here. And since most of you have watched up anime and animated shows, if you lived in either America, Canada, or any of the hemispheres in the North, South, or Western, let's just go down a quick list. So first off, we're going to start the obvious one. You remember Adventure Time? One of the main supporting characters, known as Lumpy Space Princess, she was voiced by a man, aka Pendleton Ward, who, if that name doesn't sound familiar to you, he's one of the creators involved in the show. I believe he's also the head creator. So, yeah. There's also another one most people born into 2000 should be familiar with, or at least the late 1990s. Edna Mode from the Incredibles franchise. And, yeah, 2 came out 6 or 8 years ago? So, yeah, the Incredibles franchise is probably one of the more iconic people you think about when it comes to women voiced by men. And she was voiced by said man, Brad Bird, who I can assure you is his real name, and he returned to voice her in the sequel. And I feel like there's a crap ton of people from Bob's Burgers who fit that description. Fair warning, I'm not going to mention everyone, and I have an explanation for why later, but while I'm not as familiar as I am with Family Guy, and definitely compared to American Dad, first up, you have Tina Bletcher from Bob's Burgers, the daughter of the main family. She's voiced by Dan Mitz. Then, next up is her mother, Linda Bletcher, Tina's mom, who's voiced by John Roberts. There's also another character named Jocelyn, who's Tina's friend, that's also voiced by John Roberts. Then there's Glenda's friend Gretchen, who was voiced by Larry Murphy, an American actor and comedian. There's even Marshmallow, who was originally played by David Herman before Jari Jones was recast, since the crew probably preferred at that time to have a black trans woman do the role over a white man. Apparently, the reason why there are so many male actors doing female roles in the show was because, well, at the start, like 95% of the female characters on the show were voiced by men, and that started because the show had a small stable of voice actors, so they had a much smaller pool to use, so that would explain why some people like John Roberts had to reuse his voice to do other characters. It's something you see often in other shows, like I believe in Code Lyoko, while there's like at least about 20 recurring characters, most of them shared the same voice actor that you probably couldn't tell, but I'll talk about that in the future. But yeah, however, as the show grew in popularity, they were able to get more female actors, which was good. Hell, Madame Gasket from Robots was voiced by a man. I have not talked about or heard about this movie in a while, and the funny thing is that she has two voice actors. In the film, she's voiced by Jim Broadbent, who still has roles in TV and movies to this day. And in the video game, she's voiced by Fred Tatascorza, the guy who usually plays monstrous-looking types, the muscle in a group of heroes, and Marvel's go-to voice for animated Hulk. I'm not joking about that, by the way. Seriously, I think the only exceptions are from Iron Man Armored Adventures, Planet Hulk, and the Superhero Squad show. Seriously, he's been Hulk in 11 shows, and he also played a woman in a pretty good Robots movie. It's pretty damn impressive. And there's even Clementa from Fish Hooks, from Disney Channel, who was a supporting character. The clam in charge of the captain of the cheerleading team and the unrecruited crush on Oscar. Yeah, someone's gonna bring up she got less screen time in the second and third seasons, but that's because her voice actor went on to create another show for Disney. What was that show? Gravity Falls. I'm not joking. Alex Hirsch voiced her in Fish Hooks, but had to spend time working on his own show, and even there, both seasons had a recurring female character, and we all know who I'm talking about. One of Mabel's friends, Glenda, who was played by a man named Carl Farluolo. I hope I said that right. In fact, let's talk about voice acting in the anime world now. So, first off, we have Sean Chiplock, who voiced the Orc Queen in Standing on a Million Lives. Then we have Karu Hanase from the anime Tamako Market, who was voiced over here by Lorado Anazalua. Heck, you know how Dr. Eggman has been voiced by Mike Pollock since Sonic X? Well, before anyone accuses me of cheating by using Sonic X as an example, he also voiced the original character Ella, the maid, in the dub. But, BIP, I hear you yelling, Japan and everything they make is much more superior than the inferior Western Hemisphere that I may also be raised in, despite the fact that both hemispheres are usually inspired or take inspiration from one another. Japan is above that, right? Wrong. The main antagonist of Princess Connect Redive, at least for its first arc, is known as Mana Cerny, who's revealed to be Kaiser Insight, who's responsible for the memory loss of the male hero protagonist in the story, and the supporting female character Pecodine's mystery, as Mana usurped Pecodine's kingdom and impersonated her identity. She's killed other characters, treats her underlings rather callously, is a bigot to beasts despite being one herself, and apparently she's so strong it took everyone in the village working together to weaken her enough so the heroes would stand a chance at beating her, which sounds super intense. And who is this powerful woman voiced by? Shota Ao, a man who started his career as a singer after being a finalist in the Yamaha Teen Music Festival in 2004, but since his singing career couldn't fully take off, he released music, then do stage productions before getting his star-making role as Mikaze Ai in Uta no Prince Sama, which helped revitalize his career and was known as a great angel due to his soft voice in the 2010s. Okay, BIP, that's only one. Alright. How about Witch of the Waste from Howl's Moving Castle, which in the original Japanese was voiced by Akihiro Miwa. Akihiro Miura is a drag queen in Japan, but he's also played the supporting character Moro in Princess Mononoke. You know, the 300-year-old goddess of the wolves who possessed divine power and intelligence and able to understand and speak human languages, who initially distrusts and threatens the protagonist Ashitaka, but is protective of her daughter Sae. I also got one clip I want to show you guys.
女性役だと、はい、ねえ、ひとしさん。今夜のご予定はどうなっていらっしゃるの？目が入ってるもんね。すげえ。でももう本当に子供か、ちょっとこう美人、あとは女性役ですね。ちょっとこうおっぱいが大きいような方とか。おっぱいが大きいような。はい。おっぱい大きい方の声ってどんな声なの？あ、でもそろそろ私のお相手をしてくださらない？うわ。F やな。F やあんまりない人の声はどう違うんですか？先輩。あ、ほんまにないわ。ないわ。こいつないわ。こいつないわ。どれぐらいのどれぐらい。
So, yes, a male voicing a female character is something that happens in both America and Japan. And I think it's just normal and we can all recognize that. Alright, that's all I got for y'all. Anyway, enjoy. And BIP Bizarre Interest Productions, signing off.